If you feel like you've been shooting forever and you're still not getting the results that you want, this video is for you. Not because you're doing something wrong exactly, but because there's a difference between going out and shooting a lot and actually getting better. And once you understand that difference, everything about what you practice and how you practice changes. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what intentional practice actually looks like. Not the theory version, the real version, and the one habit that will move the needle faster than anything else. And stick around to the end because the last one might surprise you. If you're new here, I'm Karen. I taught myself photography the hard way, and I built a 13-year portrait business, and I'm here to help you skip as many painful lessons as possible. Before we get into it, if you're still trying to figure out what to even practice, my easy lighting guide is linked below. It includes 5 lighting setups that cover 90% of what you'll ever shoot, so you can stop guessing and start practicing something concrete. It's completely free, go grab it. But first, let me tell you about the Lunch Hour collection, because it's the perfect example of effort that looked like practice, but it was absolutely going nowhere. I used to work in a dentist's office before I went to full-time with my photography. So on my lunch hour, I would go out and I would shoot random things that I thought were interesting. Baby bottles lined up in the fridge because I thought they looked really cool, condensation beating inside of a clear shampoo bottle, the hands on my kitchen clock, a rotten banana peel, a piece of ginger root, and the texture on the side of a jelly jar. And my personal favorite, a very artsy close-up of a ceramic fall pumpkin in a dentist's waiting room. Was any of it wrong? Well, not exactly, but was any of it really making me better at photography? Absolutely not. Today we're talking about how to practice so you actually improve. We often think that the more shots we take, the better we're going to get at photography. But the truth is, shutter count isn't skill development. You can shoot almost every day and make zero progress because effort and the approach that you take are two very different things. But following whatever you find interesting with zero structure involved means you're not staying in one lane long enough to actually improve at any of it. So the fix is really simple. Just pick a lane, pick one genre of photography that you want to practice and keep getting better at that thing first. And once you see progress, then it's time to move on to the next thing. But you also have to define what progress looks like first. How do you know you're improving if you don't even know what improvement is supposed to mean to you? You can't get there if you don't actually name the destination. So start with an honest look at where you actually are. And before you practice anything, define exactly what you're going to practice specifically. A great way to do this is to pull up the last 10 shots that you took and ask yourself, where did I miss something in these photos? Was it focus or exposure or composition? Was it the lighting? Was it the background? So naming the exact thing that you need to work on is really the first step. And if there are several things that you feel like you need to work on right now, pick the most pressing issue and start there. Not with all of them, but just one. And as long as you're limiting the variables of every practice session, it's a lot easier to isolate the actual skill. So choosing the same location, the same type of shot, and hopefully the same time of day each time. Drop me a comment below and tell me what's the one area you feel like you've been stuck at for the longest time. I'm genuinely curious to know. Here's what intentional practice looks like in everyday life. Say, for example, you want to go capture sun flare in a portrait at golden hour. You're not just going out in the evening time and shooting nonstop until you're exhausted. You're going out with one goal in mind. Because 5 intentional shots with adjustments and observations beats 50 random ones every time. And say, for example, you're still practicing manual mode and you're not quite comfortable with what your settings should be in any given situation, try using aperture priority, where you pick the aperture that you want and the ISO, and then let the camera choose the shutter speed. And then once you're reviewing your photos, look at the settings that it chose for you and see what shutter speed it selected for the area that you were shooting in at the moment. Analyzing those numbers on your photos will help give you an idea before you ever pick up your camera again to know, hey, if I'm shooting here with this aperture and this ISO at this time of day in this particular location, it's going to give me a shutter speed of whatever it gave you. That way you can start learning how to correctly adjust your shutter speed with your aperture and your ISO for situations that you shoot in more commonly. You'll get a feel for it after a while, and before you know it, it'll come a lot more naturally to you. And when you're analyzing all of your shots, take notes, like actual real notes, whether it's writing them down or using voice memos on your phone, whatever method works best for you. That way you're not starting from scratch at every session you're going out to practice. I'll tell you what worked for me in real life for getting practice and getting in extra reps when I had a very busy life to begin with. I homeschool my 3 children and I'm constantly running them to this activity and that one. I don't have much time in my day day as it is. So finding a whole other day to go out and practice shoot to get better at my portrait business wasn't always feasible for me. So I found it easiest when I already had a session scheduled to tack on another 30 minutes either before or after the shoot. And my clients weren't necessarily with me during that practice session. It was just me knowing that in a certain situation, I could figure out the variables of manual mode or whatever else I was working on in particular without the hassle of taking a whole nother day off just to go out and figure this stuff out. So me tacking on an extra 30 minutes to a session that I already had scheduled for the weekend made a lot more sense for my lifestyle. And you might find something like this that works for you too. Maybe you're working a day job and you have a few minutes on your way home where you can simply pull over and go to a certain park or somewhere that you wanted to practice shooting. Any way that you can work that into your existing schedule is going to be the best practice schedule that you can actually stick with. We all know we're not going to get better if we don't put the reps in with photography, if we're not practicing the skills that are going to make us amazing when we're at those sessions. So building that into your day or your week is a great way to go about that. One of the most overlooked practice habits is looking at your scene before you ever pick up a camera. When you get to a place where you want to shoot, pay attention to where's the lighting coming from. Look at what's in the background and where does the subject need to stand in order to make your shot work. If you're shooting portraits, clients trust you to see this stuff. They're hiring you because they don't know it themselves. And this is also where the creativity lies, not just in the technical settings of how to take the photos. I spent years just putting my subject wherever I thought would look best next, and I didn't pay much attention to the lighting direction and the backgrounds and how a scene was composed in order to make it look the best that it could. And this caused me all sorts of problems because my photos didn't end up as good as they could have had I taken a moment to look at the whole scene in its entirety before I took any shots. Oftentimes locations don't even serve the shot very well, so paying attention to all those little details throughout your session are going to give you much stronger photos. And these practice habits are going to help sharpen your skills so much faster. Before your next shoot, even if it's in your backyard, try spending just 2 minutes looking around the area before you ever pick up your camera to take a shot. And tell me in the comments if this changes anything about how you approach the shots you take. And my favorite tip is that you can practice without ever even picking up a camera. Learning to visualize your shots is a trainable skill that you can practice anywhere. If you're walking in a park or sitting near good window light, or even if you're driving past a really interesting location, ask yourself, where would I put my subject in this scene? Where's the light coming from? And what's distracting around the area? You are training your eye every single time you do this. So the photographers who improve the fastest aren't shooting the most, they're just paying the most attention. Taking more photos isn't the answer here to getting better. More intentional photos is. Pick one thing to work on and define what progress actually looks like for you, and then stay in one lane long enough to see improvement. And if you're not sure where to even start, the Easy Lighting Guide is linked below. 5 lighting setups that cover 90% of what you'll ever shoot, so you have something concrete to practice with. I want you to actually get better at this, not just shoot more. So go pick your lane. And if you're still watching, leave me a comment below and tell me what's the most random thing you photographed in the name of practice. I need to know that I'm not alone with the ginger root.